So sorry about that. I did have some slight technical difficulties, and I want to make sure that my sound is working. I do apologize for the situation that occurred just a few minutes ago, and I'm not getting any audio return. So I just want to make sure that this is working. If the person who just joined in the show wants to let me know, or you, Andrew or Sammy, if you guys wouldn't mind going on and checking to see if I am getting audio returns, because I don't think I am. I'm not getting. It's not registering. I don't know how I'm going to fix that if that is the case.
Okay, I will check.
Yeah, I would. Okay, you do hear me? Okay, that is a good thing. All right. If you're hearing me, then that's a good thing. And I do apologize for the technical difficulties that I did have there. I did accidentally take myself off of live trying to get everything all set to go. And since that occurred, I am going to change the order of everything that occurred. So I will introduce the first two of my guests that we are going to be having tonight. And so if you guys want to introduce yourself now, you can go ahead and do that.
Hello, this is Sammy. I'm Andrew, also known as Road Warrior 627 on Twitter and YouTube.
And these two gentlemen accepted my invitation to come on, and we're going to get into everything Breeders' Cup. But before we get into that, since Andrew, I know you are going to be watching some horse racing on Saturday, but you're not going to be watching horse racing in San Diego. You're going to be watching some horse racing at the finest racetrack in the country, Belmont Park, and that may be a controversial statement, but I think Andrew and I are people who subscribe to that opinion. Andrew, I will ask you, before we get into all the Breeders' Cup stuff, what are some of the things you like on the Belmont card Saturday?
Okay, so honestly, I haven't really taken a look at Belmont that much, other than I know it's going to be a Christophe Clement fest for me. He's one of my favorite trainers, and I'm going to be picking some of his horses in the Breeders' Cup too. There's a horse who I like at Belmont called Gallon or Rush, who I really needed to win last time, who is now a pretty short price. So rather than playing that horse to win, I'm probably going to play either doubles or pick threes out of that race or into that race, the ninth race at Belmont on Saturday. But I haven't really looked, because I've been really looking at the Breeders' Cup ever since I knew I was going to be on this show. I had a horribly busy day yesterday, so I had to devote much of my time to this rather than to Belmont. But that's what tomorrow's for.
And what you will be seeing periodically popping through, it is going to take me some time, is I am going to put links to everything. That was actually what I was in the process of doing before I got taken off of live. I will put a link to the Racing Rundown's big Breeders' Cup episode, which is also episode number 131 of our podcast, which is where you can regularly depend to get Racing Rundown content. I am going to be regularly updating YouTube. Now, we're not going to do weekly previews of races just because both myself and my co-host Eric, who unfortunately will not be able to join us tonight, but we will be putting at least our episodes out on YouTube, and maybe the occasional preview. We also are going to have, was very glad to just wrapped up a few minutes ago, Breeders' Cup Power Hour with my friend Jay Priven of the Daily Racing Forum. So that will be out tomorrow. That's a rather short edition of Breeders' Cup Power Hour, but it is Breeders' Cup Power Hour nonetheless. So do appreciate that. And for some reason, I have two live streams going. I don't know what the situation is with that, but that will be resolved at some point. But what I was in the process of saying is that show does the big Breeders' Cup show. It's an hour and 40 minutes. It's the longest video that I've ever produced for Racing Rundown, whether it's on YouTube or podcast or everything. But I felt it was worth it. And also the reason why we're doing the live show is because we will not be doing individual previews. I wanted to give the viewers an opportunity to have a large amount of Breeders' Cup analysis. So that video does have timestamps though. So if you care about certain races and not so much others, or you just want something that's more digestible, you can go there. And I'm also going to be including links to Andrew's YouTube channel. He is Road Warrior 627. He does previews occasionally like I do. And with that being said, we'll get into the big news that just came out. This is just breaking. So this might be news to some of the viewers who are coming in, but Jack Christopher according to Michelle Yu, who's a reporter over at Santa Anita, is out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which I don't really know, at least for me, that doesn't change the dynamic of the race, but he was the morning line favorite, and I'm sure that he was a lot of people's picks in the race. So I'll talk to you guys about this. I don't know if, I don't think, or Sammy, I know you didn't pick Jack Christopher. I don't know, Andrew, what your opinions of Jack Christopher were, but how does the scratch, at least in your eyes, change the juvenile?
Yeah, it wasn't going to change it much for me. I saw the Champagne in person, and while I thought Jack Christopher put in a pretty good performance, that was around a 1-turn mile at Belmont, and that's obviously a lot different than the 2-turn mile in the 16th over at Del Mar. I'm looking for somebody who wants a little bit more ground. That'll give you a little sneak preview to my pick. And it has to do with somebody else who was in that very race, not far behind Jack Christopher. So honestly, with that and the rail post, I wasn't really thrilled with Jack Christopher in that race anyway. So it really, I mean, I'm sorry for him, absolutely, from getting his opportunity. But as far as my picks are concerned, it didn't really affect me that much.
And I will make one other note about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This particular race, if you're betting this race, I fade the favorites. Obviously, Jack Christopher's out, but fade Corniche. And, you know, I've had my fair share of things to say about Corniche, but more so than anything else with Corniche, if we go back to history, and history is a bad marker to handicap Breeders' Cup races, I understand that. But if we go back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Del Mar, the only other time the race was held at Del Mar, the race was completely thrown off for the favorite in there, Bolt Doro. And, you know, Bolt Doro ended up, you know, not being the greatest horse in the world, but going into the juvenile looked really good for him. And then he drew outside, and that really screwed him for the entire race. And he was just never really able to get himself into the juvenile, and wound up finishing third in there. And Corniche, and I don't know what the viewers' respective opinions are of Corniche, but as someone who doesn't think very highly of him to begin with, you add that handicap with Corniche, the outside post, it certainly doesn't do well for him. And I don't think drawing in one does anything really to mitigate the problems with that. Corniche would have done a lot better if he had drawn where one of the other two Baffert horses were 8 or 9, which is now going to be 7 or 8, because the rail horse Jack Christopher does come out of here. Jack Christopher wasn't my pick. Again, if you listen to Racing Rundown's Breeders' Cup show, I went against Jack Christopher because I thought, Andrew, I think you're going the similar route that I did, because it looked like Jack Christopher was getting caught late in the Champagne. And I will make one thing about Jack Christopher clear. I think he's a very talented racehorse. I just didn't think the juvenile was his race, and he was getting caught toward the end of there. He looked a lot like Complexity in the 2018 Champagne. And, you know, we'll get into this a little bit, but I wanted to give Sammy the floor to talk a little bit about this race and how he thinks of it. So I'll give you the floor for that now.
Hope everybody's doing well. For this race, Jack Christopher, with him going out, he's obviously a talented racehorse, but he wasn't going to be my pick. It just sucks because, first of all, he's a good racehorse and you want to see him in the race, but also for the odds. He was going to get played, and now all that money is going to go to Corniche, and it's also going to bring down my pick, Command Performance. So we'll see how that works. But for me, Command Performance, he's definitely not going to be. Well, what do you guys think he'll be now? I say like 5-2, maybe.
Depends on how much. It depends on how much Corniche is going to take, but I could see Corniche taking some good money. And the secret is out with Command Performance. I think am I correct in assuming? Sammy, you obviously said you picked him, but Andrew, am I correct in assuming that you're going to be picking Command Performance in this race?
I mean, honestly, after the scratch of Jack Christopher, I feel less inclined, because that was my opinion. And like Sammy said, all that money is going to be flooding into the other top choices. I don't think you're going to get as low as 5-2. Maybe he'll be around 7-2. And on a maiden, I don't love that. There is another horse in here that I like that if you want me to talk about now, I'll talk about now. If you want later, I'll talk about later. That I like as well. But yeah, he was going to be my pick.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
Go ahead, talk about it. You have stuff. We don't have a time limit, so just if you have something, go shoot it.
Okay, well, Command Performance obviously was the idea. I thought 5-1 was a pretty fair price. I was actually hoping maybe I'll get a little more because they'll bet Baffert out there anyway, even with the other two horses that weren't supposed to take as much money. The other horse I'm interested in here is a little bit slow on paper, and ironically enough, it's another Pletcher. It's the 5 Double Thunder, who has been racing pretty consistently in terms of getting better. The Brisnet speed figure this year, I've been relying on speed figures less, but I still think they're a good metric overall. They've been getting incrementally better since the beginning of his career. I know he got beat by 4 1/4 last time. He was coming from way back. Keeneland's usually pretty hard to close on that track. I'm not too worried about it. Flavien Prat picks up the mount for Todd Pletcher, which I find extremely interesting. Whenever you see Flavien Prat getting on East Coast horses, or he is an East Coast horse, I find that pretty interesting, even though this is a West Coast race in locale. So I'm really interested in the 2 Pletchers here. If I was betting this race, which I'm not, I don't bet the Breeders' Cup for personal reasons, I would box the 2 Pletchers for sure in this race. And maybe I think about putting the 5 on top now because of the price drop that's definitely going to happen on Command Performance. But, those 2 are where I'm heading. I want no part of Baffert in this race. And really, nobody else caught my eye. My original idea was 10-5-1.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about, I'm in the process of, because I'm aware there are probably people who haven't gone through the full show, but Double Thunder was my pick, so I very much second what Andrew had to say about Double Thunder. Said it perfectly. He's been improving throughout time, and this looks like a race that could be good for him. The thing I was really hoping for with him was, and now that Jack Christopher's out of the race, was Corniche and Jack Christopher were both going to have to send, and unfortunately, Corniche is still going to have to send, but unfortunately, he's not going to have the extra prodding of Jack Christopher. So that may open up Corniche. I don't like Corniche in general as a horse. I don't think he's that good. I know that there are people out there who think that Corniche is the real deal, and that is, it's understandable to see that, but I just, that racetrack at Santa Anita was very speed favoring. And, if you look at some of the horses that were running underneath there, it wasn't the most fair track in the world. If you know my co-host, his pick in this race is Oviatt Class. And if you listen to our post, that big Breeders' Cup weekend episode, if you listen to him, he had a big defense of Oviatt Class, and he wound up going with Oviatt Class. We just did, as I mentioned earlier, Breeders' Cup Power Hour with Jay Privman, and one of the horses that Jay mentioned is having a huge chance in here is Oviatt Class. And, I don't know how much this is going to change potential Wise Guy horses in here. I don't think he'll take money because he was bested by Corniche as much as he was. Certainly kills all the value that Command Performance was. I thought myself, having really liked his Champagne effort, I thought the secret was out on him for weeks now. And, certainly with Jack Christopher out of the race, people are going to look to him now. So all value is basically gone on him. Baffert's 2 are probably going to take a lot of money now. I think Pinehurst was 4-1, or 8-1 on the morning line. He'll probably come down to somewhere close to that 5-1 line that Pinehurst was on the morning line. But do you guys have any other opinions on this race? Are you taking any shots underneath with closers? Did you like horses that you weren't going to pick? Were anything else that you thought looking at this race? Because that's what I went to. Oviatt Class, I certainly agreed with my co-host there. Double Thunder was my pick. And then there are some interesting long shots, but I'll give you guys the floor for a minute.
For me, I only have my top pick right now, but also that made me like Command Performance even more is that maiden race where the horse that ran second force ranking came back to win. And you have a couple other horses, if you look back at the form right now, as I pull it up. The horses underneath ran second, third, and fourth. So that race just came back to be pretty productive. And last time, he just closed to Jack Christopher very fast, which we like to see. And he's going to like the 2 turns, and Irad getting back up is a good sign to me. Corniche, like Jack said, he's going to have to stand. And I think that 2 Jasper Great, he's a mystery in this race. but he's very fast up there. He's gonna go. His 3 furlongs work was actually really well today or yesterday. Oviatt Class is a horse that, like Eric said, he liked. He's a horse that is probably going to be good underneath at some value. He'll probably be about 18, 15 to 1 in my opinion. And of course, Double Thunder. Flavian Todd, 20 to 1 is interesting for sure.
Andrew, did you have any thoughts on other horses in here?
Yeah, not really. That's about it for me. It's just the Pletcher box. I don't have a lot of ideas in here.
All right, well, this kind of threw the races that we were going to go to out of order because we had to get to the big news about Corniche. I see one of the viewers in the live stream mentioned something about Echo Zulu, so we're going to do the races out of order, but that's fine, just because there's no real rush here, and why not get to what there is? And by the way, I will mention to the viewers in there, if you have questions for us, want us to comment on a particular horse or anything, feel free to drop that in the comment section and we will get to those at some point. May not come immediately, but I will make sure to get to that. But in this race, we got a heavy favorite. Odds on right now on the morning line. Echo Zulu, she's undefeated. She has won 2 Grade 1 wins. And what is there not to like? And of course, that's a trick question because I'm not going with her, and I know a lot of people who are not going with her in this race. Are you guys among the group that are going with her, or are you going to take the shot and go with the heavy favorite in this race, Echo Zulu?
This race for me, I found very interesting. First, this race is really, really good. And I expect kind of a fast pace in this race, and that can set up for 3 horses. I have some thoughts on each horse. We start off with the 1, Desert Dawn. If you go back and watch that replay, at the top of the stretch, she looked absolutely dead. And I know she picked off tired horses, but that was nice to see her keep going and going. And that track was biased that week. So that I found her interesting. Every horse is interesting a little bit in this race. Hidden Connection, that was just very impressive in her win at Churchill. If you go to Sequest, I found a lot of people found Sequest very as a long shot pick. I don't know if you guys have been seeing that. People seem to like her a little bit. Have you guys been noticing that?
Yeah, I actually did like Sequest. The reason I didn't go with her, I considered going with her. The reason I ended up not going with her is because the pace scenario in this race absolutely collapsed with horses not entering, but I really did like her. I thought that her effort at Keeneland, which everybody knows is not the easiest place in the world to close into, I thought it was a very nice effort. And Dallas Stewart tends to win these races with big long shots. Again, I wouldn't say that this would be an actual strategy of handicapping the race, but last time the Breeders' Cup was at Del Mar, Dallas Stewart won a race on Friday. That was before Future Stars Friday was created, but that is something that you could certainly look to in that. But I thought that she ran great there, and there's not going to be much value to be made here. But I think of the 3, Tarabi, Desert Dawn, or Sequest, Sequest would probably be the horse that I would go to. The top 3 could very easily chalk it out and run 1, 2, 3. But I think there's 6 horses in the race, and 3 of them get in the money. So you have a good shot if you want to try to find one of those horses and fit them into either a trifecta or at worst a show wager. And you just try to get something in there because your odds are relatively good. Just speaking in terms of simple math, 50-50 that one of those 3, the 3 long shots, will outfinish one of the 3 favorites. So that's the way I saw it, at least. But no, you're certainly validated for liking the form that Sequest has.
For sure. Going on to the 4, Tarabi. Anyways, she was a horse that I've been leaning on picking a little bit because I know her pedigree's a little bit of a sprinty side, but I just have that gut feeling with her, and I've lost too many times going without my gut. And this Breeders' Cup, I think, is going to be wide open for a lot of horses. And if you get a fast pace, she's going to be right off the pace, and she could pick them off, and win this race, as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess and Andrew, if you want to jump in here and talk about how you think the pace scenario is going to set up, I mean, it could go either way. I mean, you could have Echo Zulu go out there and speed roll everybody. They could lock it in with her Hidden Connection. I mean, I think those two are going. Echo Zulu's going to the lead. I think Hidden Connection's also going there. But if you want to interject your thoughts on this, feel free to do so. Hidden Connection, I will say, was my pick in here just because I couldn't ignore that last effort. I liked Juju's map. The two that I was realistically considering after they drew the race were those two. And like I mentioned, playing against Echo Zulu just because I think she's beatable. I was not overly impressed with anything that she did, and not that she's not a good horse, but I think she seems to be the typical. And there's been a trend in those Grade 1 races at Belmont Park. For the 2-year-olds, the Champagne and the Frisette, they've been producing a lot of sprinter miler type horses, and they've been good horses, but they've been sprinter miler type horses. So I'll let you guys go now.
Yeah, so I personally don't care as much about the pace scenario in here. I know that sounds a little bit stupid, but I think out at Del Mar, you're probably going to get an honest pace as you do at both the big California tracks. I think it's a bit of a head-on collision, though, with that, because you generally get a fast pace even in these 2-year-old route races, but also Del Mar, if any of you have ever watched races at Del Mar, you know how short the stretch is. And it's very hard for me to see closers coming from way, way, way back. That being said, I don't have a strong opinion in here. And in a race where I don't have a strong opinion, I try to find the best long shot opinion I can possibly have. Anybody can pick the 5 or the 6. And I was thinking about picking Juju's map for a while. But ultimately, I landed on the 4, Tarabi. I think of the closers, she's probably going to be the closest one, which is good to me with the pace scenario I just described. I like that maiden win at Ellis, and that second to Echo Zulu wasn't bad in the spin-away. However, the thing that really made me like her, actually, and this is a little counterintuitive, is the time off. You would think that this horse would have had another race in between the spin-away and this race. Now, Cherie DeVoe is not good off the layoff. I just heard that from a guy watching a different stream about an hour and a half ago, a guy named Gene, who was commenting on the wrong lead stream. She doesn't have good numbers with that. But they purchased this horse for $240,000. She improved her figure 8 points in her second start in a Grade 1 at 19-1. And look at those workouts coming into this race. The last...
I'm losing Andrew right now. So in the process of that happening, I'm going to just let you know that it's not a problem with the stream. It's a problem with Discord that we're going through. So Andrew, I don't know if you're hearing me right now, but if you can hear me now, continue. I just wanted to get that out there that we didn't lose the stream, we lost him, but I think you're back, so you can continue.
Yeah, I thought I was going off on a really good tangent, so I'm very sorry about that. Anyway, the thing that I like the most about Tarabi, the 4-horse, I actually like the time off. Cherie DeVoe, I just was told about an hour and a half ago, does not have good numbers off the layoff. But after that second real nice performance in the spin-away, albeit she finished 4 lengths behind Echo Zulu, and the big works coming into this race, I think Cherie said, look, we know who she is. We know she can improve. Let's give her the time until the Breeders' Cup to develop her, and maybe she can run that one big race. So that's what I think she was doing leading up to this race, not running her in October at Keeneland or somewhere else. And that's my long shot possibility in here in a race where I really don't have too strong of an opinion. And sure, the 5 and the 6 can run around the racetrack. The 2 can be there. I don't like the 2 that much, honestly. I think the 5 and the 6 are better than the 2. But as far as a definitive pick that I have to give, it would be the 4.
And I will
Andrew's point a little bit of Tarabi. Also, Andrew, I disagree because I just looked up the stats. Cherie DeVoe is 15% on 31 to 60 days off.
I'm well aware of that. And I said that, I think. I said she's bad off layoffs.
Yeah.
That's not that bad. 15%.
Well, and here's one thing that I'll interject right here, and this is something that Jay Pridman said, and I'm basically spoiling the whole show with Jay Pridman, but it's not that long, so if you're hearing stuff on there, and there's also stuff to go in that I'm not going to say that he said, but one thing that he said was that worked out specifically for the Breeders' Cup is Connection strategically finding the opportunity to get their horses specifically ready for the Breeders' Cup, and that worked out well a lot of times in 2017 when the Breeders' Cup was at Del Mar, and this was more so with the older races and specifically on turf. But it's something that could be applied here. And what Andrew said about Cherie DeVaux's thought process with not giving her the race in October, that the Breeders' Cup was the target. They identified it after the Spinaway. We'll give her the time. We'll get her to the Breeders' Cup. We'll see how she runs there. So I wanted to interject that point as well.
Yeah, and also just forgot about that, how she slammed at the brake. And she completely lost the brake. So to run on like that I found also impressive too.
Yeah, and in terms of this race, I mean, there's not much. I'd love to be playing underneath horses in here, but there's really nothing to draw from because there's only 6 horses. So with that mentioned, we'll move on to Saturday's races, and I want to get to. I wasn't originally going to talk about the filly and mare sprint because I want to pretend that race doesn't exist, but I will ask you guys. Hold on a second. I will ask you guys. Are you of the thought process that Gamin's a layup, or are you going elsewhere in this race?
If I was betting this race, I would never bet this race. I wouldn't. This is a rooting race for me. I'm rooting for Bella Sofia. I'm rooting for Rudy Rodriguez. That's it. That's literally all I have. I don't want Gamin to win, period. End of story.
This would be a first race to me. Gamin's obviously I would prefer over right now, but those are the 2 horses. I would be surprised if anybody else won, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and I know people are going to make their cases for the other horses, and I mean it's a Breeders' Cup, so no reason to not, when you see an opportunity to take your shot, to take that shot. But I would say that. Oh, I apologize. I'm in the process of texting someone. I would say that this race, like you guys said, is just it is a 2-horse race on paper. I've never been CC's biggest fan. I was very surprised when she went down to Florida and took out the race there. I mean, she wasn't really running against anything that strong at Santa Anita last time, and I guess you could say she excels at the 7/8 of a mile. But at the same time, it's just, we're looking at a horse with Gamin. This is my thought process. I understand Gamin hasn't been as impressive. I mean, most people have been able to understand it. She hasn't been that impressive this year compared to what she did last year. But this is also a filly who has never lost sprinting. And, that has a quality to itself. And I complain all the time, not necessarily complain, but I always say all the time that wins don't mean everything. But this is the case where I'm going to go against that traditional logic and say she's just superior to. I think even if she runs her B race, she's still superior to most of the other horses in here. Bella Sofia is a nice horse, but one thing I will say, and I didn't say this on the podcast because I wanted to say it on here. Bella Sofia, the group of horses that she beat in the test, it's not like she beat world beaters either. And I don't like to criticize horses for what they beat in their last start because a lot of times it's out of their control. But Obligatory and Super Sensational got throttled at Keeneland in the Raven Run. And my thought when that happened and those horses were not anywhere close to it was that can't be good for Bella Sofia. And I like I said, I understand that she is potentially the best. She is the best 3-year-old filly and could potentially be on the same level as Gamin. But it doesn't look really good to me when the best horses that you're going up against in a subsequent race get completely throttled. So we'll see if that is something that ends up happening. That's just the way I saw it. Is that something that would concern you guys if horses that a horse that you like in a Breeders' Cup were beat in a previous race, the horse you like beat horses by a ton, and then multiple horses from that race came back to get throttled in a subsequent race. Would that be something that would concern you?
A tiny bit.
It would be a little concerning, but the Gallant Bloom, was a nice win. But yeah, that would be a little concerning if the horses that come back don't perform how you expect them to.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Yeah, and again, we're spending too much time on a race that is very one-dimensional. So we're not going to spend that much longer on it. But I just wanted to ask you guys, because the dialogue of conversation opened over the past couple of days. Is this really the race that we all think it should be? I still think it is. My opinion's not changed. I picked Gamine. Gamine was the only. She wasn't the only favorite I picked, but I will get to much later in the show. I made a pick 14 specifically for the live show, and I only singled one horse, even though there were three horses that I was extremely confident in winning this weekend that were heavy favorites. Gamine was the only one I singled on this pick 14 that I created for myself to give out on this live show. So I will put that in there, and we'll get on to another race that has a heavy favorite, and that is the Dirt Mile, and that features Life is Good, who has had a lot of stuff follow him, injury, trainer switch, all that stuff. We're not going to get into the drama of that. Just his overall runs as a racehorse, and his last two efforts with Todd Pletcher they've both been winning races. And I think everyone who watched the Allen Jerkins understands that he ran a race there, and there were certainly Mike Smith didn't do him that many favors in the Allen Jerkins, and you also have to remember Jackie's Warrior is just. I said it on Racing Runout. I think Jackie's Warrior is the best sprinter in half a century. So that tells you how high I think of Jackie's Warrior, and losing to him is certainly no issue in my part. So I'll let you guys get into this a little bit if you want to talk about Life is Good and potential. I'm not. We're skipping over races, Nathan. If you want to get into Life is Good in the Dirt Mile, if you guys are going against him, or if you're going to be going with him in this particular race,
it's hard not to go against. So I'll tell you that. Wait, did I word that correctly?
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it because you got cut out. Because of my connection.
Shoot. It's hard to go against him.
I mean, I don't think it's hard to. By the way, hi Nathan. By the way, it's hard to go against. I don't think it's hard to go against any favorite in any race. I almost never pick favorites. It's just something I hate to do. So, I never have an emotional attachment saying, oh, I have to pick the favorite. I could care less. I mean, these horses, they don't know who I am. They don't know that I exist. It doesn't matter to me. But that being said, I'm going to take Silver State in here. It's not anything clever. I just like that he was a win machine. He had that one not so good race in the Whitney, and then he ran pretty good last time out. Mind Control's a hard knocker. I'm not surprised that he beat him. Life is Good. Yeah, Life is Good is good. Really, really good, like the race call said. He's not that much better on paper. I don't know why I should be worried about it. I mean, Silver State's actually got a higher prime power number than Life is Good does, if you care about that. Not that I do, but some people like to use the Brisnet prime power. Nothing creative in here. This is a race that kind of just bored me to death. The Richard Baltus's horse is put together nice back-to-back runs too, but that horse is only 4-1. I don't really have much where to go in here, and again, if I was betting this card, this is a race I would totally skip. I'm just not that interested.
I have one thing that I would say is a bit of an exotic that you can go with this race, because I think there is going to be somewhat of a pace in here, Obviously, you have Life is Good. He wants to be on the lead. One thing that I'm not sure how many people are realizing this is Jasper Prince is in this race. Jasper Prince ran in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. Not only did he run in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year, he was one of the big pace setters in the race last year. So with Jasper Prince being in here, that certainly means he's going to be close there. And Ginobili and 8 Rings are also probably going to be relatively close. So this is a race where they could conceivably go super fast. I don't think that it's going to be that problematic for Life is Good, which is why I ended up going with him. But if that's the case, I did produce a horse for the pick 14 just because I gave myself a rule, only single one race, and that Gamine was the horse I chose to single. And I thought I picked Snapper Sinclair last time out when he ran on the turf at Santa Anita, and he just narrowly missed getting up there for second. He's had an honest campaign this year, bouncing between dirt and turf. He had a nightmare trip in Dubai when he ran in the Godolphin Mile back in March of this year. He could have won that race. He was also picked there. So, both times I picked Snapper Sinclair in races this year, he's found ways to get himself beat there. But, he'll be coming from late. And if they decide to go nuclear reactor meltdown levels of fast in this race, then he's the horse that I would say potentially at a price you could go with in here. But certainly Silver State, that's the horse that Eric ended up going with. There would be no problem with picking Silver State in here. And I don't think it's foolish to go against Life is Good. Some people may think it's foolish. I don't think so. I mean, I picked him because I think he's just superior, but I could certainly see the situation unfold where he gets beat. I just laid it out for you. Jasper Prince, Ginobili, 8 Rings. They all want to be forwardly placed. Jasper Prince ripped apart the sprint last year. Basically, all of us who are Whitmore fans, and I don't know who isn't a Whitmore fan out there, one of the horses we have to thank for Whitmore being a Breeders' Cup winner is, oddly enough, Jasper Prince. So Jasper Prince could end up screwing a lot of things up, or they could all just not go to the lead and let Life is Good free run and let all this banter be moot. But that's the way I was looking at it. Life is Good, obviously, was my pick. And with that, and I will also now welcome, I apologize to you, Dennis, for not being able to be 100% on the ball with getting you into this, but welcome Dennis Trusty. And also in the process of, while we're doing welcomes in the process of this, another YouTuber, Sketchy the Horse Guy, also known as Nathan, jumped in. So I know, Nathan, you've already talked, but Dennis, welcome to Racing Rundown.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been on Discord, so yeah, thank you for having me. Glad I could be here.
Yeah, and I guess since we're still on the dirt mile, what are your thoughts on that? Are you going to Life is Good, or are you trying to beat him somewhere?
For Life is Good, at Breeders' Cup Mile, I am not going to try to beat him. I thought about it. The only horse I thought that could beat him was Silver State, and I think he'll be too far behind. He'll have a lot of work to do, and chalky for me in that race.
Yeah, the two early dirt races on this card are rather chalky. Unfortunately, you can't do much to avoid that. But with that said, now that we've exhausted the dirt mile, we'll move on to the filly and mare turf. This race is rather wide open. There are a lot of horses in here that look really strong. America, contrary to the Breeders' Cup Turf and the Breeders' Cup Mile, is actually contrary to the Breeders' Cup Turf, America's well represented in the mile. But in this race, potentially the favorite in here, Warlike Goddess, who has just had such a good campaign this year. I mean, you can't really look at anything that she's done this year, aside from the first race at Gulfstream, which doesn't count. If you've been listening to Racing Rundown the entire year, you know how high this show, and specifically my host Eric, has been on this horse. But there's horses in here coming in from not just you're used to saying Europe at Breeders' Cup, not just European horses. You also have Love's Only You, who's coming in from Japan. She's been running huge races in Japan and Hong Kong and in the Middle East. She was third, beaten very narrowly by Mishrif and Chronogenesis. Mishrif, unfortunately, not here. Chronogenesis ran in the Arc, and she didn't run terrible in the Arc, but she didn't win, and it didn't really give that strong of an impression. But that doesn't really take too much away from Love's Only You in this race. And then you have your European Group 1 winners in here. You have last year's winner, Audaria Rougier, who is one of those European Group 1 winners that I mentioned. And then, other interesting American horses. I would say Chad Brown is represented by 2 horses. I'm rather skeptical on their abilities to be able to win this race. And so I guess we'll start with you guys. What were your thoughts on this race? Who did you end up going with? And outside of horses that you liked on top, who were some of the ones you would have considered using underneath in here?
Okay, so I want to make a disclaimer. We're going to be talking about some very big turf races here. I have not looked at any of the Europeans. I have not looked at their replays. I have not really looked at the comments where there hardly are any comments, and the comments that are usually there are useless. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to be going with all American horses as I usually do. If you want to hear more about the Europeans, you can listen to these fine gentlemen, or you could listen to a million other people who are handicapping these races. I didn't have the time to do it. This is another race where, and believe me, there will be some races later coming up very soon where I have some strong opinions. In here, I don't. Again, I'm going to do what's worked for me all year long. And I've had a very bad year handicapping, just straight up handicapping. I've had a very good year picking horses based on angles. And my angle in this race is to just box Chad and Billy Mott for a small amount of money and try to get lucky. Because, again, I don't love the race. If I was betting, I'd try to make a lot with a little. Box my man Chad, who I secretly hate, with the favorite Warlike Goddess. I mean, how could you ignore that campaign? And it seems like she's only getting better with every start. I don't like my sister Nat. I don't really like Pocket Square either, but he's Chad. I didn't like Rock Emperor or Serve the King, but I boxed those two horses and I hit the exact in that Joe Hirsch, even though I didn't deserve to. Sometimes things work out, and I'm going to hope that happens again here.
Yeah, and I will mention one note before the rest of you get in. There was a prediction that was made a while ago on Racing Rundown that Pocket Square would win the Filly and Mare Turf. I will clarify that if anybody does remember that. The prediction was made before we knew that the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf would be run at 1 3/8 this year. If you remember back in 2017, they ran this race at 1 1/8. They were going 1 1/8. Pocket Square would absolutely be a horse you could consider in here, but 1 3/8 is just way too far for her. But like Andrew said, Chad Brown is Chad Brown, and if you think anything's impossible, just go watch the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, because in no universe should Rock Emperor be a Grade 1 winner, but that's the universe that we live in.
Do you agree? Do you actually prefer the 1 3/8 distance, or do you prefer the 1 1/8 one? Just a random question.
Oh, I prefer the 1 3/8 distance. That's what it is pretty much everywhere else. It's either 1 3/8 or 1 1/4. It's fairer to horses that if the turf is a distance race, and this is what the Filly and Mare Turf was for its entire career, a route race. Aside from Keeneland, every other track, it was either 1 3/8 or 1 1/4. So. Certainly it is better, and majority of the horses are around able to do that. So this is absolutely the right distance for the race to be, and I'm glad that someone at Breeders' Cup had the idea to change it so that it wasn't going to be like it was in 2017.
Yeah, well, that's nice to hear. Me personally, I have no real comment on this race. Filly and Mare Turfs are not really my expertise. I will say this, Love seems to be a little on the other side of her better years. One thing I do know about European racing, despite not really watching a lot of it, is that sometimes the biggest races have like 4 horses in them, kind of like some of the Santa Anita races, so you sometimes have to take it with a grain of salt. Like towards the end of Enable's career, the only reason why she kept winning Grade 1 races is because she had to face 2 horses.
Sammy or Dennis, who wants to go first?
I guess Dennis will go first. I guess I'll go first. In this race, you can go about anybody. It's a very good addition of the Filly and Mare Turf. You could go about 10 horses. Just choose one, basically. You can make a case of all of them, so it's going to be a good addition of this field. That's what I have to say about this race.
Yeah, I mean, this is a field that's got some very interesting horses in here. I really liked Rugier's win in the pre-opera last out. I thought that she carried a really big chance coming in here, and something crazy could happen. One thing I will say though, and I said this a couple of times on the big episode for this week, is local horses tend to run well in California, and there's 2 horses that are exiting the Rodeo Drive, going to Vegas and Dog Tag. Both of those horses are well worth the look in this race. Maybe not a play on top, but certainly a play underneath, because You see it a lot of times in these turf races. They know the turf course. They've had success over it. And that's what going to Vegas won the John Mabey here, and she also won an allowance race. And she's exiting a Grade 1 win. So I would say don't overlook her either. She's also going to be a price because the Euros are going to take the money. Love's going to take Love's Only You. Daria's going to take her fair share. Rugier's going to take money. And obviously, the American favorite, Warlike Goddess, will take money. So that's going to float up those horses. Dog Tag's 30-1 on the morning line. Going to Vegas is 12-1. They will be very, very good angles. And I would prefer that angle, honestly, to the chat angle. And I know Andrew is certainly very valid in being afraid of that. I am. There are races where I am going with the chat exacta, but that's another thing. If you're looking to play one of the favorites and potentially make some money in here, play a favorite on top of one of the local California horses in here. And if I was playing with found money, I would play one of the favorites on top of both of them because I think that they are going to be the absolute value of the race and they're sitting on potential really strong efforts. But that's just how I see it. Does anyone else have anything to add about this race? Dennis, are you all set to go?
Yeah. So whenever this horse ran Warlike Goddess at Churchill back in October of 2020, you know the movie scenes where the lights dim down, here comes a pretty girl walking in, and you grab your buddy, and it's like, she's the one. I had that moment, I think, with her back then. I tapped my buddy on the shoulder. I said, she has got to be one of the top 10 best-looking horses I've seen in person.
That'd be really bad out of context.
Yeah. But no, that's kind of what... It wasn't like that, but it was like that with the horse. You know, you just see that this horse is different, you know. I'm glad that she turned out to be really good. I mean, I do think she's beatable here because I don't like the competition she's faced, and I do think she's still got a little bit of growing to do. But she's really muscular and really big. She almost looks like a boy up front, you know. As far as horse goes, that's a good sign for a filly. And I will say this. The slower they go, the more she's going to like it. If they go 50 and change, she's going to run them over.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Do not look at her and be worried about any kind of her not being able to close into it, because that's what it's been every time this year. And I called it on the episode where we talked about the Flower Bowl. I called it the find a way factor. And I don't know that there's a horse in America that has a better find a way factor than Warlike Goddess was. I have a question that came in about whether or not I think Rugier is going to get the firm turf. I think she will. I don't think the year. I mean, this is kind of a throwaway response to it, but the Euros wouldn't be coming over here if their trainers don't think they're going to. Let me rephrase that. They will get the turf because their trainers will not be sending them over here if they didn't think that they were going to run over it. It's just a question of, do you think that her overall work of races means that she will run a winning effort or run a somewhat average effort? But I think she will get it. It's just a matter of, is she good enough to beat the horses that she's going up against in here? And, is it going to be a perfect fit for her, or is she going to have a little bit of trouble adjusting to it? But I'll open it up to you guys. Do you have anything else to add about this race? I've said about all that I have to say.
Not really about this race specifically, but since you mentioning like horses who are in California fare better in California races, it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole. So I'm going through all the 2017 Del Mar Breeders' Cup races and seeing how many horses were from California and how many were not. So far for the dirt races, it's an exact even split. 3 raced in California and 3 didn't. So take that for what you will. And I'm working on the turf stuff.
All right, well, with that being said, we'll move on to the sprint, which is another race that has a heavy favorite. But this is another race where the heavy favorite is a horse you can, at least in my opinion, go against. But I will say right now, made it very clear, I think Jackie's Warrior is the best sprinter that we've ever seen in half a century. That will be something that we'll further get into on Racing Rundown. But with that being said, there are some potentially very shaky pace scenarios. You have following C to the inside of him, Juan of Vosburg, who's absolutely going to have to send. Jackie's Warrior is obviously going to send. And then you have further out Matira Sky from Japan. If you've watched the Riyadh sprint for the last couple of years, Matira Sky has looked like he's gotten the race one wire to wire and just got caught right at the end of the race. But he's going to be forwardly placed. And then you have Special Reserve, who, where else is he going to go? Now, the thing is with Jackie's Warrior is he may be faster than them all. That's what I banked on with him. That's why I picked him. I think that he's the best horse. I think that he's the best sprinter in the country. It's not that it's not close, but I think that it's rather convincing that he's the best sprinter in the country. And then you have the other horse who I forgot to mention in the potential mix-up is the potential wild card, and that's Dr. Chevelle. He's going to be the wise guy horse of this weekend. He's second choice right now on the morning line, so there's not going to be too much value with him, but he's the tactical horse in here. Last time his rein broke, he went out there and had a very, very fine effort there. He's certainly one that you can go against Jackie's Warrior with in here. And there are horses that if they're going to go nuclear reactor meltdown level pace in this race, to go with. I liked CZ Rocket if that was the scenario, because CZ Rocket is a horse who has campaigned on the West Coast. That's not specifically the West Coast factor. It's not why I went to him, just because more so because he's a closer. He closed into the sprint last year, ran second. The pace was very fast there. Whitmore was coming from behind. He won. CZ Rocket was second. And Lexingtonian has pulled off his fair share of big upsets. Now, I would say I wouldn't be too worried about him because his success at Saratoga came because he was put forwardly placed on the lead. And the other thing I'm going to say about him is he's just such a random horse that I'm done trying to forecast whether or not he's going to run huge or he's going to run awful. This is a horse you could do either, and at this point, it's not going to surprise me. But I think that the win at Saratoga came because he was more forwardly placed. There's no way on earth he is going to be able to keep up with your following C's and your Jackie's Warriors, and I don't even think Special Reserve is going to be able to keep up with him, but that's beside the point. So, what were your guys' thoughts for this race? Is this the Jackie's Warrior Fest, or is this they melt it down and someone comes from out of it and wins the race?
It could be either. I accidentally had you muted for 1 second, so I don't know if you mentioned the number 9 horse, Dr. Chevelle. Have you?
Yeah, I said that he was the most tactical horse in the race and the wise guy horse.
Yeah. That was exactly when I accidentally hit the mute button, so my mistake there. If you hadn't talked about him, I would have mentioned him. But yeah, he's just a California front runner, home court advantage, maybe. But with a 50-50%, that ain't really a guarantee. So maybe, but probably not.
I guess I'll go next. Jackie's Warrior, he just simply, I think, is just faster than them. And I'm not worried if he goes 21 and 43 like he did a couple races back. But if you look back at the Gallop Bob, quick story, they were turning for home at a good view, and I turned to my dad and say, just watch this. And man, his strides are just, to see in person, it's just so beautiful. The way it moves. When you see it, you can't really bribe it unless you see it. It's just, when you see him, you know he's a superstar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is that throughout that entire ride, you do not see the jockey move. Like, he has literally no encouragement while he's winning that race. Like, all the other horses are in like, one of the most beautiful things to see is just to see the other horses, like, desperately, like, the jockeys are trying to get him going with the whip. Meanwhile, the leading horse is not even being touched by his rider and is still opening up. That's how you know that he's got this race beat with his eyes shut.
Yeah, let me find the video. I could send it in the chat real quick while you guys keep going on.
Yeah, so I think this is the Jackie's Warrior Fest, much like a lot of other people do. I think he's probably going to win. But this is Firenze Fire's last race. I'm Firenze Fire's biggest fan on the planet. And if I didn't pick him, I'd be committing a sin. So I've decided to pick Firenze just out of love for him. Jackie's Warrior 95% chance is going to win. Already locked up the sprint championship, all that stuff. This is just a fanboy pick. Following C, who Jack had in the Vosberg and was right about for third.
I mean, Friendly Fire may not win, but he sure may make sure that Jackie's Warrior doesn't come out in one piece if he gets close enough. Give us one last brutal savaging before he goes off to savage the mares.
Oh, that was funny. So, yes, this does look like a Jackie's Warrior race. It does. I also think you're having to look elsewhere. Dr. Shivel, that's a logical thought as well. I will say, and this is my off-the-wall idea, there's an ATM machine in this race, and I don't want to get off of it, but I don't want to bet it either. Lexingtonian, okay, crazy. Horses ran third at 46-1. The horse has won at 18-1. The horse has won at 17-1. The horse has won at 11-1, second at 8-1, second at 46-1, and won at 34-1. Hey, the horse might lose a lot of 20 races and only wins 5 and 9 times on the board. But when this horse hits the board, you get paid. So, with that said, if I'm betting across the board, it would be on the 7, but this should be Jackie's Warriors race if you're playing to pick 4.
I'll give one note of positive to Lexingtonian, who I did kind of say I'm not really interested in. One of his better career races did come at Del Mar, and it came in the 2020 Bing Crosby Stakes. Collusion Illusion ran a huge race in victory there. That was one of the better picks that I had on Racing Rundown last year. I had Collusion Illusion on top of my value play, and there was Lexingtonian, and Lexingtonian did run a huge second there, so he does get over the surface at Del Mar, and I don't see a reason that they don't melt this pace down. Now, that doesn't mean they take out Jackie's Warrior, but that means that they take out Following C, Matira Sky, Special Reserve. Firenze Fire potentially could get caught up in that. So he's probably going to be a higher price than CZ Rocket is. CZ Rocket is the horse I prefer as the long shot, but certainly to further give credence to Dennis's point, you are absolutely right, Dennis. You get paid when you get Lexingtonian. You just got to find the right race to have him. This could potentially, though, be the right race if they go fast enough and they decide to melt it down, as much as I think they could potentially do so. But going to repeat this one more time, I'm not super concerned they could go. I've said it hyperbolically on Racing Rundown that they could go 20 for a quarter, and I would still pick Jackie's Warrior in a race. I don't know that I would go that far, but there's a lot would have to happen for me to not end up on Jackie's Warrior in this race. And now we're going to move on to the race that gives everybody fits every single year, and that's the Breeders' Cup Mile. I'll let you guys get into it. Who wants to go first with this race? There are tons of ways to go. So who wants to tackle this race first?
I'll just start with the first of many ways, not necessarily my strategy, because as usual, I came into this just for the fun of it and not with a lot of diligent thought, with the exception of the Classic. I do have some things to say about that. But if we're talking about the mile, there's obviously the California route, like Dissemble for the Homeboys, and I'll always be vouching for those dudes. Smooth Like Straight, I mean, he hasn't won anything, but except the Shoemaker Mile, I believe. But, he's always been right on the board, right behind Mo Forza. So, he could snag another one of those, California seconds if you want some of that 10-1 price, or Mo Forza if you're looking for less money and more consistency, or not more consistency, but more winning. That's just one way to tackle it. But there's also Space Blues. I've thought about that horse for a while.
I think we lost Nathan. I will say one thing, though. Mo Force is 5-1 on the morning line. I would be shocked if he stays at that level. He's my pick, so I would love it. If the bettors at Del Mar want to send him off at 5-1, be my guest, because it would give me a better shot to make some money out of this race. But unfortunately, I don't see him staying up there. Space Blues is going to. I don't know whether or not he'll be the favorite, but I really liked his effort in the Group 1 that he won at long shot. But the unfortunate thing is everybody else liked it too, and how can you blame people? Because it was a very nice Group 1 win that he had. But my rule of thumb is normally going into these big races, everybody else's wise guy horse is not my wise guy horse, and he's not the wise guy horse anymore. He's the favorite, but I ended up not on Space Blues because of that logic. Nathan, are you back? Do you want to finish the point that you were trying to make?
Yeah, actually, is it good? Am I good?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I just lost you momentarily.
How far did I get?
You were talking about Space Blues.
Oh, but all I had to really say about Space Blues is that I've known that horse since his big Saudi performance, and ever since then, I've been kind of enamored. Although he did kind of flop in the Al Quoz and one other race, he seems to have gotten himself back on track. I have a feeling he'll likely be the favorite. Actually, Casa Creed, I picked him back in the Jaipur, and I was pretty happy about that. But I'm probably not going to pick him this time around. But it was fun the first time. I'll tell you that. For now, I was just mentioning one of the ways to pick this race, and that was the California way. That's about it. That's all I can really give.
Yeah,
Nathan. Sorry, Jack.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, unfortunately, I don't know whether or not I said this on Racing Rundown, but it's funny that Nathan mentioned the Jaipur because Casa Creed was really kind of screwed coming into the Breeders' Cup. He doesn't have a race that fits him well. 5 furlongs is too short for him. A mile is, he just, not that it's too long for him, he just doesn't do well at it. His 2 best races this year came in the Elusive Quality and the Jaipur. Those were 7 and 6 furlongs. If I feel really bad for the connections, because if this was at Santa Anita this year, I'd be all over Casa Creed, but just wanted to make that mention that unfortunately we're not going down the hill at Santa Anita, because if we were, I'd be all over Casa Creed. Andrew, you can pick up the phone now.
Yeah, and if I could just say something for 10 seconds, I'm tired of these 5.5 furlong turf sprints. To me, they're not real turf sprints. It's more just like a mad dash and it's over. There's not time for any strategy whatsoever. So that's another reason. Get the Breeders' Cup back to Belmont. Okay, my 10 seconds is up. Nathan did not pick Casa Creed. I am picking Casa Creed. I love this horse. I think he might finally get a good pace scenario that works for him. There's a few horses that might go to the lead in here. But more than that, you see that 15-1? I think that's going to be way, way higher. Because for some reason, people tend to ignore horses on the outside. They don't turn the page. And I'll admit I let a 64-1 first-time starter go by because of that once. Bad for me. So even people who have been handicapping for 16 years since I was a young boy make those mistakes. I love Casa Creed. I'd love to see Bill Mott and Junior Alvarado win this race. His problem is obviously the post. This is 2 turns. He might get stuck wide. Hopefully he can save a little bit of ground, but I don't like the probability of that. Behind that, and I was never a big fan of this horse, but Got Stormy. Got Stormy had a renaissance in that 4-star Dave, which is obviously a race that Casa Creed ran into. And for some reason, the Breeders' Cup Mile, the mares always show up. Got Stormy, Gaff Leone, he knows what he's doing. I would love to see Got Stormy win this race too. She obviously has. Does she have experience in this race?
She ran. So she has twofold experience. Not just does she have the victory, or not the victory, she has the placing in the Breeders' Cup Mile from 2019. The other thing about Got Stormy is, and Got Stormy is a very weird horse. Some tracks she doesn't like the mile at. Like Keeneland is a track that they didn't run her in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year because they didn't think she would like the mile. They said Saratoga was just a track that she excels at, and that can be seen by 2 wins in the 4-star Dave in a second. But another one is Del Mar, and Got Stormy is a horse that the track has to fit her in order for her to run huge here. Luckily for you, Andrew, she does have a big grade 1 win. Gotta have to alternate between saying group 1, grade 1. Yeah, she won the Matriarch at Del Mar in 2019. So course matters with Got Stormy. And fortunately, if you are someone who does like Got Stormy, that is in your favor here.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the second in this at Santa Anita, and it's not Del Mar, but it's similar enough. But that's a way better point. The Matriarch, which is directly at Del Mar, but also the second at Santa Anita does show that California ain't a problem for her. She ain't an easy babe. She can do both sides. So that kind of convinces me that there is a chance that we're going to see the Got Stormy, that gets stormy.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance of that. And to conclude my top three, another mare blowout. I got to use a Chad somewhere, and I've never been a Raging Bull fan. Therefore, I'm going to go to blowout just because I needed to include Chad somewhere. The problem in this race is obvious for anybody that doesn't want to pick this man. Appleby has two horses in here. Appleby is 6 for 14 over in the U.S. this year. 2 of the 8 losses have been horses where he ran 1-2. He beat his own horse with Althea beating Summer Romance twice, once in the Just a Game and once in the Diana. This guy, if he's sending horses over here like Yabir, who I'm going to talk a little bit about later in the turf, this guy means business. I'm just trying to see. I guess if I had the money, I would probably include him just because it's him. And Space Blues does look like the better of the two, but I don't have the money to box 4 or 5 horses, so I'm going to take my usual approach and box the 3 that I feel the best about. Casa Creed, obvious win bet for me. Maybe a little saver on Got Stormy and blowout as well. Probably win and place on Casa Creed. Hopefully he gets rolling late.
And I'll say one thing about Appleby, and it's certainly something that Andrew obviously touched on it. It's not a case of like with Aidan O'Brien. You can certainly say with Appleby, when he comes over, he means business, because Aidan O'Brien will send horses over, and he doesn't have, especially as of late, his horses have not been running the greatest in the United States. But Charlie Appleby certainly coming over here. He had many more horses he could have sent over. He had 2 winners of English Triple Crown races that he could have sent over that didn't come over. Certainly other horses that I'm not mentioning. He had a Grade 1 winner, Wild Beauty up at Woodbine. She won the Natama. She didn't come over. Certainly he had tons of horses to send over, and the horses that he sent over all have huge shots. I would say, though, one angle that was extremely lucrative at Del Mar in 2017, and there's only one other Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. Yes, Space Blues does have 2-turn experience. It's way back. I'm getting slightly sidetracked from the point I was about to make. Way back in his career, but he started early running at around 2 turns. One of his runs where he ran a strong second in the early part of his career was 8.3 furlongs. I don't remember what the exact distance that shakes out to, but it was 8.3 furlongs, and it was around 2 turns. So to answer that question, yes, Space Blues does have 2-turn experience. But getting back to what I was going to say, Godolphin Wise Guy horse angle was very lucrative at Del Mar in 2017. You can ask my co-host about that. He had 3 winners from Wise Guy horses on that, and 2 of them were Wuhita and Talismanic, who were both relatively high odds when they went off there in their respective Breeders' Cup races. And the horse that I thought has the best chance to be that horse is Master of the Seas. He ran second in the 2,000 Guineas, Group 2 placed in September, and then he ran at Ascot in the QE2 stakes. I will say, to spoil some of the horses that I'm using from the pick 14 that I put together for this show, is he was one of the horses that I used. He didn't like the soft ground that he had to deal with in the QE2, and he also had to go up against 2 of the best milers in the world in Baid and Palace Pier there. So obviously he wasn't going to win that race. Didn't care for the ground. He'll care for this ground a lot more. He's going to be a price. He's a must use for me. I would say, Andrew's probably right. Space Blues is the better horse, but I think they're relatively even to each other. But I just wanted to interject that point. Godolphin Wise Guy horse, certainly very lucrative, and he's not going to be the price of a traditional Wise Guy horse because there's just so many horses, or at least I don't think. I don't know. I'm bad at predicting race odds. I don't like to do it because I can be wrong rather often, but he was one of the horses that I used in that because I like for the reasons I mentioned, looked really good on paper.
I have an angle nobody's talked about yet.
Shoot, go ahead.
Okay. Ready for this one. If I'm Olo Lobo, send in love to the lead. I promise you, if Alex Achard has the lead, midway in the turn, just the golden stream will be flying down his leg, come out, hit all the other jockeys, and they'll pull up. If Alex Achard has the lead in the Breeders' Cup race, he is going to piss himself, and nobody else will pass him. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. But anyways, I don't like that horse at all. But that was, I had to, you don't see that guy riding in any good races really often. But the horse I do like here, in seriousness now, kind of like the 8. Had a little bit of, guess I could say trouble trips. I think most of that was by jockey choice, but likes the track. We're out in California. This is the turf race where the East Coast and the Europeans don't really have much, in my opinion. So this might be where the West Coast does get a Breeders' Cup win on the turf. Because if it ain't here, it ain't nowhere else for the West Coast, I don't think. But
yeah, I would certainly second that point. I was on Mo Forza. I call the West Coast milers the big 3 because they're the 3 best milers in America, and they're actually good horses. Strangely enough, some people don't give them. They haven't been running that often this year. They only have 2 races, but I call them the big 3 because I believe that they're the 3 best milers in America. And Dennis, you are certainly right. They have I don't know that they have the 3 best chances to win, but they have they are all very, very live in here.
to be honest, though, I really would rather like my first option because that would be hilarious to see. That's just but on ahead, Sammy. Take us away.
I don't have any too strong opinions in this race, to be honest. But that would be funny if In Love does win. It's kind of cool to see Alex riding in this race. That he got that Breeders' Cup horse. He's not a bad rider. It's just cool to see this. Look, Space Blues, I would think right now is probably the horse to beat. And you also have a lot of good options too underneath. Maybe Got Stormy will run second again in this kind of race that she did a couple years ago. Still happy about that because I had her and what's the horse name? Uni. Maybe if we blow out over Got Stormy, you never know. But yeah.
All I could think of when you said Space Blues is the one to beat is and the sky is blue because it was so obvious.
All right, well, now we're going to move on to a race that if you've listened to Racing Rundown for any stretch of time, I have some really strong opinions on a pair of the horses in this race. One of them has been on a rather large winning streak, and one of them had a very annoying, stupid defeat at Saratoga that shouldn't exist. And one of them will win the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and one of them will not, and that one is Malathot. So I've gotten my stuff out of the way. I'm going to turn it over to these guys who have opinions that are going to be fresher than my opinions that I've been saying consistently for the last 3 months.
I'm just going to give some background facts that I think are kind of interesting about the distaff. I think it's kind of interesting how She Dares the Devil was able to sneak in that Clement L. Hirsch. Most of the time she would have just been stayed on the East Coast, but she stuck in that race, so she doesn't have to worry about proving that she can win in Grade 1 races at Del Mar. I know that's a small thing, but I thought that was interesting to keep note of. One thing that's also kind of I like to make a comparison of is that the Classic and the distaff are kind of similar, and that the big favorite is a crazy front runner that needs to be put in their place. Nick's Go, I mean, he may not be the favorite per se, but a lot of people like him, and he's riding a winning streak. Latruska also riding a winning streak, both out of control front runners that everyone is maybe hyping up a little too much. And there's a 3-year-old champion that might do that. Malathot and Essential Quality.
I really like those angles, Nathan. And spoiler alert, that those are going to be my angles in these races. Latruska, we know who she is. She's a monster in her division. She has this Eclipse Award wrapped up. I mean, there are idiots out there who vote for these Eclipse Awards who put so much on the Breeders' Cup. She should be able to run last in here and still win the older Mayor Eclipse Award. It's obvious. Okay, that's it. Said, done. The problem is, how do you try and beat the big favorite in this race? And honestly, I don't see anywhere else to go but with Malathot. And Malathot, I can't believe Jack is not picking her. I seriously cannot freaking believe it. He is this horse's biggest fan. I thought she lived in Jack's backyard in a little stable he built for her. But I'm gonna be taking her in here because I like Todd giving this horse the rest into the Breeders' Cup. If you saw what he did with a horse named Vino Rosso into the Jockey Club Gold Cup in 2019, he gave that horse extra rest. He was going to run him in the Woodward, but he decided to skip and point to the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Yes, he did get taken down, but he did finish first, and he should have got taken down. But the point is very similar to the thing I talked about with Cherie DeVoe earlier. I think that angle might work here again with Malathot. Again, just like Cherie DeVoe's horse, this horse is working out fantastic over at Belmont right over here. Ships out. I think we're gonna have a hell of a stretch duel here. I think Johnny's gonna come up on the outside, and these two are gonna come down the stretch. I don't think this is gonna be a distaff we're ever gonna forget. The reason I'm going against Latruska, because I said, okay, I have to go against her. Why? I guess it's the money. I would have ran her in the Classic. She has nothing to prove against these horses. Literally nothing. She's run against almost all of them except Malathot. And even if Malathot beats her, her year is just so good and so long. She's run everywhere. She gets the award at the end of the year. I would have taken a shot, said, you know what? Let her have her chance to hit the board in the Classic. That's what I would have done. So that's the reason, the fact that they decided to keep her in here. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they just want the money. That's fine. I totally respect that. There's a lot of money for first in here, over $1 million. That's fine. I just feel, and this was a last-minute change. I was going to pick Latruska. I decided to change about 2 hours ago, right before the show started. And third, Royal Flag. I think she's had a heck of a nice second half of this year. So I'm going to stick her in for third. Nothing that you can really make money off of in this race. This is more grab your popcorn. I think it's going to be this is a race. I was originally skeptical of the hype. Excuse me, I can't talk, for this race. I believe it now. The more I think about it, I can't wait for this.
I am going to just quickly correct something for the record. Andrew, I'm not. There might have been some audio issues on my end. I am picking Malathot in here. I considered, I will say though, I'm very afraid of Chad Brown in this race because Royal Flag ran a huge race in the Beldam. And I don't, it's not going to get talked about how good that race was because you have Latruska, you have Malathot, you have She Dares the Devil, all three Grade 1 winners, all three horses that everybody's watched for a ton. Clairiere, everybody's glomming on to her after her win in the Cotillion, and that's certainly rightfully so because she ran huge there. And, you know, Royal Flag is kind of flown under the radar because it was on a Sunday. It was, you know, the Beldam should be a Grade 1. Andrew, I'm sure you're in agreement with me on that. Unfortunately, it's not a Grade 1 anymore, but so I'm not sure how many people, I don't know, but I think she's going to be the real value of this race. And what I'm going to say is what I'm doing in here, I said it on Racing Red, and I'm going to reiterate here. I'm not playing too many triples this weekend, but I'm playing the triple of Malathot over the two Chads. This is the race where I think the Chad Brown angle is going to be the best. You could potentially pick Royal Flag or Dunbar Road to win in this race because I do think they could go fast enough to cause that to happen. But regardless of that, I'm not going to regurgitate points I already made on Racing Rundown. I'll turn it over to Sammy or Dennis, whichever one of you wants to go next.
I think that segues perfectly into what I was going to say. Sorry, Sammy. I know you unmuted there, bud, but it was a perfect segue because, this horse isn't my top pick. It's definitely the horse that I'm going to use for sure and everything. Dunbar Road. But don't forget about her. This horse, you say, well, she doesn't win a lot, right? Okay, that's fair. Every race besides one in October or November has been triple-digit speed figures. Every one of them. Each year. She never runs a triple-digit speed figure unless it's in November or October. So, I think she's definitely a horse that you have to include. She's very scary. She does need to get a lot of help. Alpha is the top pick in here for me. I think she's tough, and I'm not using Latruska at all in this spot. Crazy, right? We use She Dares the Devil. I'm torn between the two Baffords. Which one I'll take on that? Hey, yeah. No Latruska in here for me, and Alpha is the real deal.
For me, if you look at the pace projections, well, you can figure it out yourself too. But you're gonna have 4 horses, 3 others. There's no way Junior does not send horologists. You're obviously gonna have Private Mission. She Dares the Devil. I mean, I think Flo has already learned his lesson about not going with Latruska and Ogden Phipps. This race, I'm gonna agree with you. Race just set up perfectly for Malathon, and we'll see come Saturday. But it's gonna be tough for Latruska with all these horses pressing her.
Yeah, I would say I'm more confident that Latruska is not winning this race than Malathot is winning the race. And as much as I'd love Malathot to win the race, I've been sounding the horn about Latruska all year. I need her to not pull this one out because I'm going to look like the big idiot if she does win. But I don't see how it can happen. Florent Giroux and Brad Cox, smart men, not going to not put She Dares the Devil on the lead. That's how they beat Latruska at Oaklawn this year. Private Mission has to send from the rail. Horologist is going to be close there. There's no way that Latruska is getting it easy. Can she be better than them all? Certainly. But there's a glaring weakness that Latruska has, and I'm not going to ignore something like that going into the Breeders' Cup with a horse that is going to be, she's 8-5 right now. She's going to be shorter than that. I at least I think. I don't know how she doesn't get, with all the hype that's been talked about her, all the horse of the year talk, I don't know how she drops below that 8-5. And Malathot is going to be the best price that you will have her for the rest of her career. If she comes back next year, she will never be the price that she's going to be tomorrow, or I'm sorry, not tomorrow, on Saturday, because she will be the favorite in every, should she win, she will be the favorite every single time going forward from here. You could potentially get third choice with her, depending on how much people like She Dares the Devil's last couple of races. But that's how I see it. Again, value in here. Certainly one of the two chats. I prefer Royal Flag. Dennis prefers Dunbar Road. But certainly both of those could end up happening in Dunbar Road. This will be her third Breeders' Cup. And something that I will mention is props to them for keeping her around for a third year. I know that it hasn't really been that successful for her, but she's been an honest enough competitor. And it's nice to see horses stick around for longer than just the 1 year. So anyone else have anything else that they want to add about this? That was what I wanted to get off toward the end.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate kind of the Knicks Go versus Latruska comparison, because both have had it a little too easy up on the lead. They've been allowed that lead a little too easily. So if Latruska wins this race after everyone goes after her, then she's earned it. She's really earned it. But is that going to happen? I don't really know. You know, but like I genuinely don't understand why do horses nowadays get away with all of this? Why do they get away with such easy front running styles? Shouldn't like some trainers take a hint that maybe they shouldn't let the horse lead the whole way?
Well, the last couple of races, there just weren't the horses to compete with her. I mean, in the personal instant, Swiss Skydiver could have competed with her, but that wasn't really going to do anything for her. And the the Spinster, it was just a casual stroll in the park for her. There were no horses that could have taken it to her in there, but it's just the fact that she's been in the races that she's been in have just the type of horses in the race have just dictated her being able to go out and free run. So I mean that's all of them. I can explain that the reason for that with all of them except for the personal ensign.
Yeah, can I just put one more thing in,
Absolutely,
Jack?
absolutely.
About Latruska, I had hardly any respect for her most of the year. I got in fights with people on Twitter about her. I kept telling people she's not that good. She's not that good. She'll win the Eclipse Award, but she's not that good. The personal ensign was the race that made me a believer out of her, made me a believer of hers. And that's the only reason I'm picking her second and almost picked her on top in here, was because she was pressed a little bit and she held off some really good closers that were coming late. If that race had not existed, I wouldn't have put her on the board at all. It's that simple one race.
That race that you're saying that she held them off, I don't think she held them off as much as it was just, I guess an analogy of it is, it was more of just flailing her arms and it looked like she was swimming. Instead, she was just barely keeping her head above water at that point. Or am I wrong on that?
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about Rachel in 2009, too, but she still did it. She was still able to do it. I'm obviously talking about the Woodward. I think, and I'm not comparing those two races. I would never compare those two races in terms of talent, but just the situation at the end of the race. You're still able to hold on. You're still able to hold on. And believe me, the final time was not that good in there. That's the first time I ever saw her in some stretch of adversity. So that's why I'm giving her more of the respect. Besides the fact she's a win machine. I know people say, "Oh, the ones don't mean anything." The ones mean something to me.
No, the ones you're right. The ones are important. I mean, a win is a win, and you can't take away wins from horses with that. So you're absolutely right. And I will say, Andrew's absolutely right. She earns the Eclipse Award, and what I've heard from other people who are going against her and what you guys have echoed, she wins, tip your hat to her. And that's what I'm going to do. I said it on a racing run out. She finds a way to win the race. I'll come on and say, she just was better than them all. But there's the glaring weakness here, and I have to go with the glaring weakness and to try to do anything of note in here. We'll move on now to the Breeders' Cup Turf. I want to start off with Andrew, because I heard you say you have some opinions about Yabir, who is my top pick in this race. I'd like to hear what you think about Yabir.
Okay, so Yabir, this is a reason for picking a horse that I usually never give. And it's honestly because of something I saw in person. If you watch that Jockey Club Derby, that move from the 5/16 to the 3/16 pole, it took my breath away. And I'm looking at the form, because I bet other horses in that race. He was 5-2. I'm saying, who the hell is this? And then he takes off. I know it wasn't that good of a group of horses. I understand that. But that move on the turf means something. And that was a 1.5-mile race. And if he has that kick, geez, that was enough for me. And you're going to get a price in here. That's obviously the next most important thing. And then I saw it was Appleby. I said, I shouldn't be surprised at all, because I got lost kind of in the shuffle in that race with other horses. That's really the reason I like Yabir. You've noticed I'm picking a lot of horses that I've seen in person. That's just the way I work. It works for me. I like betting horses back that I've seen before. Even though I'm not betting the Breeders' Cup, I'm acting as if I am. So he's my top selection. Do you want me to get into the other horses now? or wait a little bit?
Well, I'll open it up to anyone else. Does anyone else want to give their opinions before Andrew does? Or if not, Andrew, you can go on with some of your other feels about horses.
I might have a few more things to say, but this is just a weird one-off thing I've noticed. But everyone knows United, right? Finished second at Santa Anita and the Bricks and Mortar 2 years ago. I'm not necessarily saying that he'll repeat that, but this year he's had an interesting specific pattern.
Well, I don't mean to cut you. I don't mean to cut you off, but I will say United has been scratched from the Breeders' Cup turf, so he will not be running in it this year.
Wait, he has? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he was scratched this morning. He will not be, and that's for anyone who hasn't seen the news yet. United and domestic spending are both out of this race.
Say his domestic spending's out as well.
And
why did he get? Why are they? Is he retired or is he just not running?
I didn't see if there was a reason given for United. I know there was some inflammation on domestic spending, so that's why he came out. But that I guess we can. This is a perfect time to get to another segue. Does this change, you guys who really in depth looked at this race? Does this change the fact that Channelmaker, who draws in as number 16 with 2 scratches, does this change the race at all for you? For me, my thought was it just makes me like Yabir more in here. And if you're on a closer, you have to feel even better about the closer you're on if it's someone else other than Yabir.
My thought is that even though he got into this race, I finally can't pick Channelmaker. I'm just like Firenze Fire. I'm one of Channelmaker's biggest fans. I found a way to pick Firenze Fire. I cannot find a way to pick Channelmaker. I think he's just a little too old, just a little too weak now. He got a perfect setup last time, and he did hold on for 4th. I mean, he still held off Japan, and of course he beat Arklow and whoever the other horse was in that race, in the Joe Hirsch. So he ran fine. It's just that even with that easy pace, the 2 Chads came and got him. Gufo came and got him. So honestly, it probably helps the mid-range to closer types in this race for sure. Then again, if I'm playing an exacta or a triple, I would still absolutely use Channelmaker or Tribavan even in the 2nd or 3rd spots, because these long turf races, I know this is not New York, it's totally different. They can still hang on. Look at what Channelmaker did last year. I mean, you talk about it, he barely got beat by, I forget who Tarnawa beat, the 2 horse in last year's Breeders' Cup turf race.
I think it was like a Cirrus Ziegler type or something. I forget exactly what it
Magical. He lost by a nose to Magical in last year's Breeders' Cup turf. I mean, and that's from walking the dog. I think it can still happen. We've seen where 2 horses walk around the track like that too. I definitely think, though, that in the most likely scenario, that's not going to happen. And Channelmaker having to clear now from that far outside post. I know you got the whole backstretch to do it, but it is not going to slow the pace down. It's certainly going to add a little bit of fire to this pace, and it's going to help horses like Tarnawa, who I have 2nd, and Gufo, who I have 3rd. So I'm 10, 13, 11, 16, and 5. I picked 5 horses in this race, and those are my win candidates.
All right, who wants to go next? In the meantime, Dennis, you can go.
I was just gonna say too. There's not a lot I like in this race as far as what I'm set in stone on, especially with everything coming out recently as well. I just had a point to say though with Nara or whatever, however you pronounce that horse's name. So is it important to see a victory? I mean, obviously it is. Is it important to see a victory or to say that the horse ran a winning race? So what I mean is, last time in the Arc de Triomphe, he didn't win, but did he run a winning race? And is that almost like winning to you guys?
Yeah, no, I thought Tarnawa, her race in the Arc was huge. I had texted Eric, my co-host, after the race and to gauge his thoughts on Tarnawa, and his response was, puts her in a great position for the Breeders' Cup. She'll be a huge favorite there. So certainly.
I'm getting at with that though. This is the point I'm getting. So you're saying yes, she ran a winning race.
Yes.
But that said, 1984, long time ago, before I think any of us was born here. So, Enable was the only horse to win the Arc Breeders' Cup in the same year. Okay? You think she's just as good as Enable is? No. There's no horse out there that's as good as Enable is. Sorry. That one really doesn't exist unless maybe once every 10 years.
Wait, hang on. Where did 1984 come in?
Since 1984, this race has been ran since 1984.
Oh, sorry. I misheard you. I thought you said in 1984, like you were talking about Lashkari's winning all along, and you were going to say something like all along ran a winning race, but lost or something like that. But I just heard it like I didn't hear the since part, so my mistake.
Yeah. No, you're all right. Yeah, since 1984, there's only been one horse to do that. Even though this horse didn't win it, she ran a winning race. That's just as good as winning it in my book. Therefore, I'm totally against her, and I don't like the odds as well.
Sammy, do you have anything for this race?
The one thing that I will say is, how does Irad not have a mount? That was interesting. How he did not pick up Trifhuman.
That was interesting, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess well, the question would be now, does Javier get kicked off of Rock Emperor and Pratt pick up the mount there, or does he pick up, or maybe Aiden O'Brien might actually put him on Bolshoi Ballet because Ryan Moore was booked to run both, or it was booked for him in Japan. So one of those two doesn't have a run. So Pratt probably draws one of those two.
Castellano got Rock Emperor to win a grade 1. He stays. He stays.
Maybe I picks up Mount on Bolshoi Ballet.
That is true. He did perform a magic act there, getting Rock Emperor to win a grade 1. But I'll let Sammy get back on his thoughts. I just wanted to raise that after you raised that thought. I thought of Pratt not having a mount now, and does he pick one of Chad's guys off, or does he pick up one of the two O'Briens?
This race, this is one of the better arcs I've seen in a little bit of time.
You mean one of the better turfs?
Yeah, that's not nice. Excuse me.
No, I knew that. I knew that. I just want to make sure that we got it clear for the show.
Yeah, the turf, one of the better turfs I've seen in a little bit of time. I feel like this race, I don't know. You think there's any possibility Trip even goes gate the wire?
It's possible.
Yeah, that's why I'm using them.
Because this race, I feel like there's a lot. This race is I don't know where you don't know where to go because there's a bunch of closures and a bunch of speed. So your beer is very interesting, like you and Andrew and Jack have said. I would prefer your beer over Gaffel, to be honest.
I will mention Eric will be joining me a little bit later, so I'm not going to give away who his pick is now, but Gaffo is a horse. Gufo. I don't know how we're saying this horse's name anymore because some announcers say one way, some people say it other way. So however you choose to say it, I've been saying it that way for over a year now, but he's one of those horses where it doesn't seem like there's a true correct pronunciation for his name. But aside from that, does anyone else have anything for this race? Did I cut you off in the middle of something, Sammy? If you want to finish.
More to say. I honestly think I'll ask somebody who might be riding Bolshoi Ballet, but why would Ryan Moore not choose him? Because
well, Well, I was just saying because he's booked for both horses, so it doesn't matter which one he chooses. He can't ride both horses, so there's an open mount on a horse a day before the Breeders' Cup. And I don't think a new rider has been named. If anyone in the chat has seen a new rider been named, and we have not seen it yet, and you want to drop it in there, certainly would appreciate that.
What do you guys think of Sisyphon?
He ran a very strong race behind the ARC winner, Torquator Tasso. I'm probably not saying that horse's name right, but
it's Torquator Tasso.
Okay, Torquator.
It's actually named after that.
Torquator Tasso. Well, he ran a very strong race behind him in a Group 1 in Germany. He's an outsider that's going to be a price because I don't think too many people are going to watch his races from Germany, but he ran some good races in Germany. And there was a German horse in one of the races last year in the Breeders' Cup that looked good on paper, and Sisyphon looks good on paper. I didn't use him, but actually, I believe I'm going to check that because I might have actually used him in my pick 14, but I didn't give him out on Racing Rundown or anything. I actually did use him in my pick 14 that I will at some point get to in the show, but he has a shot. He's going to be a price. He's an outsider. He's 12-1 and Yabir's 12-1. He is not going off at the same price Yabir is. I will say that.
I see Yabir going a little bit lower than 12-1.
He will be lower than 12, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Price is kind of a pun because Grosser Price is one of the names of the bigger German races. Also, weird thing is that when someone first mentioned Gufo, I actually didn't think it was Gufo. I was like, wait, since when is this horse a turf rider? Because I was thinking of a turf sprinter named Guido, and he was just this gray horse. He didn't really win anything. He was just like a fast front runner, but for some reason I thought of Guido instead of Gufo. It's kind of there.
All right, and now we're gonna move on to the final. Sorry, guys, I don't mean to cut you off. I want to make sure that everything gets on because I have some stuff that I want to cover once we're done. We're gonna move on to the Classic now. This race similar to the Distaff. Nathan is right when he's saying that. Knicks Go is the horse that has been front running the entire year. I called him overrated many times. That was definitely very wrong. Fortunately, I came around on him in time to get him in the Whitney, but there are a good half a year of takes of Racing Rundown of me calling him overrated. So definitely very wrong there. I believe in accountability. When I'm wrong on stuff, I say that I'm wrong on it. Certainly was very wrong there. But in this race, I went against him. I went to Essential Quality, and here I have yet to, I do apologize. We've been so into conversation. I haven't put down all my picks yet. We'll get to that when Eric gets on here at some point. But Essential Quality was my pick, but let's get what your guys' thoughts on this race. Where are you guys going here?
I call dibs. First thing about the Whitney Stakes, I just kind of enjoy that because that was when we met up with Eric. Besides that, though, I already talked about this in my YouTube video about the Breeders' Cup. But my big outside pick, and the only real big outside pick that I really have any leg to stand on or any point of, is Tripoli. I am going with Tripoli here for some superstitious reasons. About 2 years ago, Higher Power, some people laughed me off for that choice. He won the Pacific Classic, didn't do so well in the Awesome again due to some outside factors, and he actually still came on to be third in that race. He was well beaten, but he still came on to be third. So after that, I kind of was like, whoop, whoop. And this is kind of the same time. Tripoli, Pacific Classic winner, had a mediocre Awesome Again performance, prefers a 1.25 miles. So that's one of the main points I have here. As well as that, he won the Pacific Classic off a fast pace thanks to Tiz and Magician. And this race is going to have some speed thanks to Knicks Go and Medina Spirit. So he'll have the exact same distance, exact same track, and probably the same pace as his biggest victory.
I'm just going to say one thing about that. I don't want to take away from Nathan, but I'm just going to say 2 words, Sadler special. John Sadler's had plenty of horses do this. Tripoli could run a big race, but at least for me, I don't see anything coming from Tripoli. It's the Sadler special. They win their 1 grade 1. They never run back to that form again. And he can run third, but he's not for me.
I mean, there's always gift box, but yeah, to each their own. I accept that, and that's probably why he's a mere 15-1, since that's his only big victory. But I'm going to hold on to it because it's my own unique take, and if I'm right, I get to laugh and go home about it. If not, well, like you said, taking accountability.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in next here. Much like Jack, I think this race is going to set up for the win machine known as Essential Quality. This is not a flashy pick. This is he freaking finds a way. He always finds a way.
The find a way factor.
And the one race he lost, the Derby, if you look at Trackus, he was obviously best. You don't need to be a mathematician to figure out that he was best by looking at Trackus. So in a perfect world, this horse is literally perfect. I think he's an ultra-talented 3-year-old. I think he deserves the 3-year-old Eclipse Award right now. High Rod Charlie is not far behind him, though. I've said in my videos on my channel all year long, I do not think there is a large gap between Essential Quality and everybody else, but I think it is a solid gap, and I don't think it's really gone away. Now, High Rod Charlie, he really stepped it up last time. He ran a big figure despite, obviously he was odds on in the Pennsylvania Derby. I still give the edge to Essential Quality because of his run in the Derby with the Trackus thing I talked about, and obviously in the Belmont. Everybody talks about that Hot Rod Charlie went so fast in the Belmont. And early on, he did the first half a mile, first quarter of a mile. He really slowed it down that third quarter, though. And for people to say that, he ran so much better than Essential Quality, no. I think they ran about the same race. Essential Quality still ran him down, though. I think marginally, very marginally, Essential Quality is still better than Hot Rod Charlie, and I will give him the win. I didn't want to put Hot Rod Charlie second, and you're probably wondering about Nick Skull. I'll get into him in a minute. So I went to a horse I saw perform live, much like I mentioned earlier. That's an angle, and that's Art Collector. I love the way he looked in the paddock in the Woodward. I went down there, I saw him, and he went wire to wire in the Woodward pretty impressively. Good speed figure. Saez did everything he was supposed to do. What I don't like that he's getting Mike Smith. I have a personal vengeance with Mike Smith. I know he was a really good rider. I wish his 90s form in New York still existed. I was gonna put Art Collector on top for a minute. Then I saw Smith was riding him. I really don't love that. Essential Quality over him, over High Rod Charlie. And Nick Sko, I've never been a Nick Sko fan. Yeah, he can win. He can run all the way around, but there is pressure in here. And much like everybody else, I'm not sure if the 1.25 miles is his thing. We haven't seen it yet. We don't have proof. We don't have proof he hates it. But I don't think also he's going to be 5-2. I think he's going to be shorter than that, maybe around 9-5. And even at 5-2, I think that's a horrible price on him. Not saying that Essential Quality is at 3-1 is good value either. But Essential Quality, I've literally never seen him run a bad race. He deserves to be a winner in all 9 of his races, and I think he will emerge as your 3-year-old champion, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Horse of the Year we could talk about later, yada, yada, yada. I'm done. Thank you, Jack. It's been a pleasure. I'm leaving, but I just wanted to thank you.
All right, who wants to go next?
Sorry. Okay. Actually, I might as well say also thank you for, even though I kind of busted in during the Philly Mare Sprint, I might as well say thank you for letting me get on here as well. While I do definitely agree that Essential Quality is better than Hot Rod Charlie, Like, I mean, you saw that 12-second troll video I did a few months ago. I think Hot Rod Charlie, out of all the front runners, is the best one. Is like the luckiest one. Like Sherman, like Medina Spirit is going to be the deadliest front runner. Is probably going to be putting Nick Sko in his place. Like that's what Medina Spirit's going to do. He's going to humble Nick Sko. I mean, home court, but Hot Rod Charlie has at least the ability to switch. Like Hot Rod Charlie doesn't need the lead. If there wasn't any speed, he would take it and go with it like he did in the Belmont. But if there is actual speed like Medina Spirit, who, I mean, he has beaten Hot Rod Charlie twice as well, just like Essential Quality. Actually, you know what? Hot Rod Charlie is kind of Charlie Brown right now. I mean, all of the horses that have beaten him multiple times are in this race. I think he has a shot. I think he could do something, but it's going to be very hard.
Well, I guess for me, I got to say, Essential Quality is about ready to do something I think that American Pharaoh or Justify has not done. He is about ready to do something I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think that any of them's done.
If I don't mean to cut you off. If you're making the if you're to fact check the stat, I think you're going to bring up that no juvenile winner has ever won the Classic the next year. That is correct.
That's what I'm about to say. Yeah.
American Pharaoh.
American Pharaoh didn't win the juvenile.
No, wait. What the hell was that going through my mind? I thought American Pharaoh. Damn it! My brain just decided just to. My apologies. I'm sorry.
You're good. But yeah, that's what I was going to say is I didn't know about the facts, but I just didn't think there was ever one, and I'm glad that's confirmed. He is not a horse. He is a robot. They look like a horse. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but no, this horse just fights every fight, battles every battle. I had him in the Travers. I gave up on him. He's dead. I lost this race. He won. I know that doesn't seem like much, even though it was a neck, but he wins. That's the type of horse that I can say he wins. Unlike Latruska, where it's kind of like she's just slipping by. He gets up there and does it. Nick Sko, he's, in my opinion, is not good. I had to check my pulse after that race at Churchill. I felt nothing. Art Collector, Mutt's in a miracle. Medina Spirit, thank God that horse is in this race so it can put a little bit of pressure on Nick Sko, even though I think Hot Rod Charlie will. I like Hot Rod Charlie too.
And don't forget Art Collector. He could also put some speed up in there.
He could. I really like Essential Quality. The only other question I have, and I guess I could bring Andrew back, or back here, Jack, and Nathan's here, and Sammy can chime in too afterwards as well. Hot Rod Charlie, blinkers on. Is that a concern? I don't like horses switching equipment going into a $6 million race.
It's a good thing.
I was taking up so much time, but since this is the biggest one, I guess I might as well go through a bunch, right?
No,
but thank you for having me.
Go ahead.
I think the bigger concern is with Hot Rod Charlie not wearing the blinkers. Well, when he does, it's just everyone else's safety because of how many times he's bumped and knocked over other horses. He's like a bumper car. So I think it's more for the safety of the other horses than his abilities. He can do good either or.
Yeah, I think I'm not super concerned about it. Sammy, what are your thoughts on this race?
What he's saying about Hot Rod Charlie, yeah, he's just more focused when he has the blinkers on, and it's a better thing for him. In this race, I mean, my opinions have changed a little bit, especially because when you really think about it, how this race is set up for Essential Quality the most. But I don't know if you guys have also noticed, but there's no way, in my opinion, that Max Player is going to be 8-1. Have you seen all these people on Twitter? All the tweets they're putting about him? I feel like he'd be the favorite the way they're putting out tweets.
He's the wise guy horse. He's the wise guy horse, and I'm glad that I didn't end up going with him because he ended up being everybody's wise guy horse. And my rule of thumb: if he's everyone else's wise guy horse, he's not mine.
Yeah, the one thing about Max Players, I don't really like that. That last one was impressive, but, especially, Ricardo and Steve, oof, it's been a rough couple weeks. I believe Ricardo just won his first race as Echo Zula's for Zet today at Del Mar. But this race is really good, and how about Charlie Medina Spirit, especially Medina Spirit? Medina Spirit is going to need the lead in this race, or else his chances are done. The one thing I think he could get the lead over Nick's Go, because I think Johnny V is going to be more aggressive than Joel to be the lead. What do you guys think?
He may be more aggressive, but you're not beating Nick's Go to the lead. You are not.
And how about Charlie's going to go too?
I think Medina Spirit will get the lead just because Isco's carrying 126 pounds and Medina Spirit's carrying 122.
And Johnny knows he has to be on the lead to win this race. Medina Spirit's win was very impressive last time, in my opinion. The way he just first time odorous, just how he did that nicely. I found that nice. Yeah.
All right, well, if that's all set, I appreciate you guys coming on, and if you have any other thoughts on this race, just now's the time, and other than that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be a part of this. I know it was a little last minute, but I didn't expect that you guys were going to be doing this in like a VC like this place. But you know what? It was a pleasant surprise, and I always have a lot of fun doing these, even if I don't always have a lot of great pre-planned ideas. But hey, I'm just here for the fun and talking horses.
Yeah, I joined late. I was having trouble getting in the Discord. I just wanted to say I was really heartbroken that I didn't get a chance to talk about Price, the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint. I really, really think Gamine blew up the top board.
Sorry, do you mind repeating that? I didn't hear you.
All I said was I was disappointed that I didn't get to talk about Gamine blowing up the top board.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you for taking the time to join me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jack. And as someone who doesn't make Breeders' Cup content anymore, at least you gave me a platform to voice my opinion. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And all the best to you and to everybody else here.
All right.
Same to all y'all.
Thank you all.
Good luck, you guys, this weekend. And now that we are finished up with them, I now get to finally welcome in my co-host, Eric DeCoster, who I'm dialing right now and should be all set to come on in just a minute. But in the meantime, I appreciate all of you who came out for sticking around with us, and welcome to, we're not done just yet. We're going to be on for a little while longer until it is officially Breeders' Cup Day. And I will now welcome in my co-host, Eric. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jack?
Oh, it's a long one, but hey, we're 15 minutes out from it officially being Breeders' Cup Day.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing better.
So, big news. The big news came out since we put out our big episode on the Breeders' Cup. Domestic spending came out. So I'll give you the opportunity to talk about why or your new option now that your pick is out of the Breeders' Cup turf. Excuse me, I almost said the mile there.
Yeah, no, a lot of big scratches over the last, or a couple of big scratches, I'd say, over the past 24 hours. A little crazy, but yeah, I mean, I like domestic spending a lot, and definitely, it was a race I wasn't really enjoying handicapping. It's a lot of good horses, but it's I think the biggest thing is it feels evenly matched, and it feels like the favorites are beatable for sure. And so I'm going to be going to Gafo as I find my alternate pick here. I like the horse a lot. I pick him a lot. He's a favorite of mine just personally, but also I think with the addition of Channel Maker, you're going to see a little bit of a quicker pace. It was already going to be quick, but he certainly just makes it where you're going to have a kind of a bunch of 5 horses really on the front end with Acclimate and going out to the lead, and he'll be joined by Tribulon, and Channel Maker will be right up there too. And then you're going to have like Walton Street sitting in behind him as well. So it's going to be quick, and I I heard some of the discussion earlier about, Yabir's going to take advantage of that. Tarnal was going to take advantage of that. But I just like Gaffo. I like that he knows the Del Mar track well, and he's handled it before with that Hollywood Derby run last year. He ran such a good race that day. And, it's going to be a question how these horses handle the turns at Del Mar, because they're sharp. They're I know a couple of them have done turns, 2 turns before, 3 turns, I guess, before, like Japan, Tarnal, obviously. But Del Mar is about as quick and as sharp of turns as you get. So it certainly is a horse-by-horse situation. I know these horses have been training at Del Mar over it, so maybe they're getting used to it at this point. But I just like to know there's a horse who has good experience over it, and the race sets up nicely for him, and that's Gaffo. So we'll see. But all in all, I would be lying if I said I was confident in the pick. I think the turf, honestly, especially with going into the entries, but especially after that scratch for me, probably the most wide open race of the 2 days, which I didn't think I was going to be saying a week ago.
And the other big race that had a major scratch was Jack Christopher coming out of it. It didn't really change anything for me. Does it change anything for you? I know you picked Oviatt Class in there, and they kind of depending some of these closers that I picked Double Thunder, you picked Oviatt Class. I know we were both hopeful that we were going to get a better pace scenario than we may get now. How does this change the race, at least in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the pace is the biggest thing. Jack Christopher was going to have to, show speed from that inside post, not be on the lead, but he'd be a presser for sure. So with him out, it changes from that standpoint. But also, you have a Jasper Great who now moves to the rail. He's a potential speed horse who he's going to have to send, but it's certain. I don't know how good of a gate horse he is. Just I think based off his one run, it's not bad, but it could certainly be better. And breaking from the rail, you're going to have a lot less of a space for air, room for air on that front. So that's my biggest concern. It does seem kind of like the Baffert horses do hold the cards on that front. That being said, I still have a really, really hard time believing Corniche is going to be able to break and clear and get the trip he wants, because there's going to be some horses taking it to him. So, I'm not going to be changing my pick or anything. I think the pace does go a little slower, but I think it is still dicey for the horse that's going to be the overwhelming favorite now, and that is Corniche. I mean, that is one thing. I do think that the price is going to be it's going to be interesting to see how the betting plays out, because it looks like a 2-horse race from that standpoint, and now that we're looking at it, it's going to be the bettors, at least the majority of them, are going to be really geared towards Corniche, and it'll be interesting to see where the rest of that money does follow. Who do they think is going to step up and beat him now? Those that are trying to beat him. Does it become an Oviatt Class or Double Thunder? Does a Command Performance start taking way more money and get that down to a really solid second choice? These are questions I think we certainly have to consider, and obviously we'll find out about less than 24 hours from now, I guess.
And with that being mentioned, has there been anything else that's popped up over the last 24 hours, or really since the time that we have done our big preview show? Has anything changed, in your opinion, in terms of race dynamics changing because of work, not even just workouts, because of horses coming out of races, or potential dynamic changes? Anything that it has struck to you? Because nothing has really struck for me, aside from obviously the big ones in the turf, and with Jack Christopher now out of the juvenile.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered those two, and that's really, obviously haven't been a ton of scratches, but important ones that we've covered. But I'm out at Del Mar. I'm working the Breeders' Cup, and so I've been out here the last few days just looking at horses, schooling and stuff. And all the horses have looked really good. I would say some horses that have really stood out to me though over the last few days. Medina Spirit. I don't like him from a handicap perspective, but he is striking. I mean, he is. I've heard people say, and I believe it is, just looking at him, that it's the best he's ever looked physically. He looks, bigger and stronger than he really ever has, even just looking at pictures and things like that. So I know it's, we're both trying to beat him. I know many others are. Physically, he is just an absolute knockout at this point. Another horse kind of under the radar, I think, that's kind of sneaking up the more I've looked at it, not picking him, but he's an interesting one, and that's Aloha West for the sprint. I mean, this horse is continually looking good every morning, the last few mornings. He's been looking really, really nice to me, and the race obviously is going to set up nicely with all the speed that's likely to to show in there. And this is a horse who's just improved throughout the year, and it's clear he's, physically really coming into his own, at least over the last few months. You look at his summer and his run in the Phoenix last time out. So that's another one. I think who's kind of grown on me over the last few days. I think he has a big chance, and is one you have to use underneath. And then lastly, this is the first time I've seen Gamine in person, so I don't know if this is typical for her, but she has a very dull coat, listless, just not great in my opinion. So if I'm taking one horse that I've seen in the mornings and schooling in the paddock over the last few days, that is really, turned me off, I think, more than anyone from these next 2 days of Breeders' Cup races. I don't think anyone has looked worse than she has. And, I think on pure talent, she's still able to pull it up, but it does worry me because we've seen her perform at what looks like a lesser level this past year. And then obviously you factor in that, I think, I've heard rumblings that she's kind of looked a little off, not off, like physically or anything, just doesn't look like she's, fully ready to run the race of her life. And after seeing her, I definitely see it. So that would be my one concern from the last few days is she just does not look like she's ready to run the race for life, which, maybe she doesn't need to run, but either way, a little bit concerning in my eyes.
All right. So now that we've basically covered everything that's transpired since then, I'm going to get into my pick 14 now. I don't know if during the course of me reading off my pick 14, if you want to make just a group of races that of the Breeders' Cup races that you like the most, just put together whatever you choose, or if you want to throw together something really fast, just like even if it's just a pick 6 or something, you can do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to read off what I put together for my pick 14 for all these races. I'm not playing anything like that. I just thought it would be a cool thing to do for the live show. So for the Juvenile Turf Sprint, in that race, the horses that I would go with are 2, 8, 9, and 12. So that's Coffee Maker for Wesley Ward, with Averly Jane, One Timer, and Run Curtis Run. Juvenile fillies, and I made a rule for this. I only allowed myself to single one horse, and that one horse was Gamine, and I limited myself to taking 4 horses in this. So these are the self-imposed limits. In the Juvenile fillies, I went 2, 5, Hidden Connection, Juju's Map, leaving out Echo Zulu. Juvenile fillies turf, in that race, I went 4, 11, and 13. Turner Loose, Haughty, the Chad Brown, one of the 2 Chad Brown fillies, and my top pick, Mise en Scène. And the Juvenile, I went with my pick, Double Thunder, Eric's pick, Oviatt Class, and then I also included Command Performance because I do think he is liable to run a big race, even though I don't like the price he's going to be. In the Juvenile Turf, I went Modern Games, Slipstream, my pick, McKinnon, and the 9-horse Stolen Base, sneaking in a little bit of Mike Maker value there. Moving on to the Filly and Mare Sprint, I already mentioned that was the one race I allowed myself to single Gamine there. Moving on to the Turf Sprint, I went with 1, 9, 10, and 12. So Glass Slippers, last year's winner, 9, Kamari, 10, Gear Jockey, and 12, Extravagant Kid, who was my top pick. In the Dirt Mile, I went with Life is Good, and as I talked about earlier, if nuclear reactor meltdown happens, then I think Snapper Sinclair has a shot, and since I imposed the rule, had to find a horse, Snapper Sinclair is the horse I would include if I'm playing a pick 3 to beat, or if I'm doing a pick 3 and I'm saving something in case Life is Good decides to lose. Moving on to the Filly and Mare Turf, I went 4, Rougier, the winner of the Pre-Opera, 7, Warlike Goddess, 8, Loves Only You, and 12, Ondaria. Sprint, Jackie's Warrior and CZ Rocket. This was already talked about earlier on the program. And then in the mile, I went with Master of the Seas, the Godolphin, longer priced horse, the 1, the 6, Mo Forza, who was my pick, 9, Mother Earth, Aidan O'Brien's 1,000 Guineas winner, and then the 12 in here, Pearls Galore, who has a really nice resume coming into this race. For the Distaff, it was 2, 3, Royal Flag and Malathot. For the Turf, it was 9, 10, and 13. So 9, Sisfahan, 10, Yabir, and 13, Tarnawa. And then for the Classic, Essential Quality and Max Player was my saber horse. Did you have anything for this little run through, Eric?
Yeah, I don't. I'll just give out, two horses, I guess, 1 or 2 horses per race that aren't my pick, but I think have chances. And in races, I pick prices, like the Juvenile. I'll try to figure something out good with that. Races have lower prices, things you can get maybe consider underneath and things like that. So juvenile turf sprint, my top pick is Armor, but I do like Coffee Maker a lot. I didn't like that she drew the inside, and the only reason was because she had the same thing at Keeneland, and she didn't look all that comfortable being inside of horses at Keeneland last time out. So that's why I didn't go to her on top. And then I will say, of the Euros outside of Armor that I've gone with, or that I like, I think Go Bears Go has a big chance to run a big race to 3. So I guess that would be the 7, 2, and 3 are the horses I like in the juvenile turf sprint. Juvenile fillies, I have 2 horses here: Juju's Map and Hidden Connection. I said it on our preview episode. I like, I was considering Hidden Connection for the most part, and then flipped to Juju's Map. So obviously, right back, Hidden Connection would be my other horse in that spot. Juvenile fillies turf is tough because I like Cairo Memories a lot. Sail By, I think, runs a big race underneath. Koala Princess, I guess 289. That was kind of my thought process the entire way, and I'm still standing there. Koala Princess, she's looked really, really good in the mornings as well, I might add. It's really just I don't like that this is going to be her first run around 2 turns. That's really the only reason I'm not picking her, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if I'm regretting not going with her on top tomorrow afternoon. Juvenile, do like Ovia Class on top quite a bit. I actually really like Jack's pick Double Thunder as well, was considering him a bit on top. And then I think Papa Cap could honestly run a decent race. Didn't hate his run in the American Trail last time out. He had trouble in the Del Mar Futurity 2-back. So I think he's one that maybe steps up. I think this is a bombs away race, honestly. I don't like Command Performance as much as I thought I would, and I really don't like Coronation, never have. So I think this is a race where if you're price hunting, you're going to be in really, really nice shape. And then finally on Friday, Juvenile Turf, I went with McKinnon on top. Also, Slipstream was another horse I heavily considered there. And then, for a third horse, it's kind of tough because I really wasn't in love with much of this field. But if I'm going to name one price, I think maybe does decently. I think maybe Grafton Street, the 11, Mark Cassie's horse. His run in the summer was really nice, in my opinion. 2-back, given he was coming off a layoff, first race on turf, stretching out to a mile. And then his maiden win was nice, and he certainly deserves to be the price he is, but from his one race at this level, you certainly have to think he fits very, very well. And then I'll move on to Saturday. I'm not going to say anything about the filly and mare sprint. I don't think there's any reason for me to. It's going to be Gamine and everybody else. Turf sprint, I do think, this is when you have to look deep in. I do have Fast Boat on top, so I think that automatically we're starting with a price there. I think that A Case of You, one of those Euros that's got a big, big shot to run a big race in here, and as well as Glass Slippers from the Rail. So 11-6-1 would be my top 3 in that one. Also, the 8 Caravel, I think if she gets the right setup, could be running late. Dirt Mile, I'm actually going against Life is Good, Silver State on top. I think Life is Good, hangs around, runs a good second or third. But outside of that, it's really hard to figure out who is going to run well. I think Ginobili, if I'm going to have one hot take, I think he's probably the horse that's going to be the lowest priced, that runs the worst. I think he is way in over his head in this spot. So that's really my biggest takeaway from this race. I think it's going to be 1-5 across the line in that order. But I think people are going to play Ginobili, and I have a good feeling people are going to regret it because his wins have been good, but I think he's more of a one-turn horse. And I think, stretching out to 2 turns with the pace scenario that's likely in this spot, he's not going to be in good shape. Filly and mare turf, this is another tough one. Warlike Goddess, the favorite on top for me. So obviously going to be looking for some kind of value and some kind of price here. I did mention on our preview show, Acanello, the 3, could run a really big race. So her and then the other Juddmonte horse, Pocket Square, don't think she'll hate stretching out to this distance. So I think she has a good chance to maybe hit the board. The sprint, I took Dr. Chevelle on top. Outside of that, I mentioned Aloha West. Definitely think he runs a bang-up race. I think he'll be double-digit odds by the time the gates open. So for sure him, and then CG Rocket as well. I think it's all closers in this race, in my opinion. I think Jack Hughes Warrior runs a credible race, but honestly wouldn't be surprised if he misses the board if things don't go his way. In the mile, another tough one. Ultimately went to Mo Forza. Have to use Smooth Like Straight underneath in some capacity, so that'd be 6-2. And then for a third runner, the 12, Pearls Galore, the €1 I really like in that race from that outside post. Breeders' Cup, Distaff, Mouth at all the way underneath. She Dares the Devil, I think, is going to hit the board for sure. And then Clarier, would be kind of the price horse in there. Don't think that race is going to get too crazy, though. I think one of the lower priced horses will win that. 2 more to go. The turf, obviously, I said Gaffo. Honestly, I don't have anything more in that race. Go whichever way you want. I think Sisfahan might run a bang-up race, but yeah, I genuinely have no idea. That's such a tough race. In the Classic, that's another one I can't really find too much value anywhere. I think it's going to be one of those favorites: Essential Quality, Nick's Go, or Hot Rod Charlie, maybe. And outside of that, I just have a hard time believing one of those double-digit shots is going to step up and run a gigantic. I don't know if you think differently, Jack, that maybe a horse like Express Train could come and hit the board late, but I definitely don't think that way.
If Express Train comes and hits the board late, that would be me being very pissed off because if listeners know this, I've picked Express Train enough times and he's not produced for me. So if he produces a time when I don't pick him, it would be like if Smooth Like Straight produces for you when you didn't pick him. But we're just going to hope that doesn't happen. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Stiletto Boy ran a big, if they melt it down, then it wouldn't shock me if Stiletto Boy ran something decent. But I think you're 100% right with the Classic. I think it's just, it's going to be the shorter price horses. I don't love Medina Spirit from a handicap perspective. He's going to have to chase Nick's Go. Like I already said earlier, I don't think there's a universe where Nick's Go is making, or someone else is making the lead over Nick's Go. Tripoli, he might drop below 15-1, but like I said, Sadler special. Those Sadler grade 1 winners outside of Accelerate, they win their one grade 1. They never run back to that ever again. And outside of that, those are the 3 double-digit horses. Express Train, I don't see anything positive about him. I don't even care putting this on the record. I don't think there's a way he wins this race. And the other 2 I already mentioned it. Stiletto Boy could see him run huge if they absolutely completely melt it down. Otherwise, not really much else to say.
Yeah, I would agree that Stiletto Boy would kind of be that horse out of those. I've heard people, saying they kind of like Tripoli. I don't really understand it because I maybe understand it, honestly, if he had not even ran in the Awesome again, because Pacific Classic one wasn't that bad, especially if you consider how well Independence Hall came back and won the Fayette, even though that was a slightly weaker group. But yeah, I've been hearing a lot about Tripoli, but I don't understand it. I think I agree with you on your Sadler special point, and his last run was just uninspiring. I agree. I don't know why you would take him over a horse like Stiletto Boy. But yeah, you're definitely right. Stiletto Boy, based off his recent runs, he's done some pretty decent things. I think it's kind of silly to disrespect him more so than a horse like a Tripoli in an Express Train, just based on how they performed over the past few months.
All right. Well, with that being mentioned, I think that's it for us on here. We were on here for over 2 hours, and it is officially past midnight here on the East Coast, so it is officially Breeders' Cup Day. So if you are watching this from Eastern Time, I appreciate you sticking around as long as you have. And happy Breeders' Cup Day, and we will see you back here in the early part of next week for our Breeders' Cup recap show. We'll see you then. And